Hello, I'm Keith Hilson with the Schmidt Music Trombone Shop, back with another instrument review for you. And today I've got an instrument I've been really excited to get my hands on, specifically the S.E. Shires TB Alessi Joseph Alessi Artist Model Custom Large Bore Tenor. After the announcement was made late in 2019 that Joe Alessi was making the move to Shires, I think everybody was super excited to see what this new model would look like from him. And we've had a chance to put our hands on the Alessi Q Series model, which I loved. You can check out a review on that. But I kept waiting to see what the custom model was going to play like here. So we got one in here. This is actually heading off to a lucky customer in Japan, but they were very gracious enough to let me spend a little time with it here. So I'm going to play it for you some so you can hear it in action, and then we'll talk about it afterward. I'm going to be playing all of this today on a Bach 5G. Whenever we see a new artist model come onto the market, it's really interesting to see what kind of changes, how specifically a certain maker designs an instrument to fit with a player. The Alessi model, S.E. Shires, I think is a perfect example of this. There are features, so many features on this instrument that we've not seen on any other S.E. Shires model. They've truly, really, I think in a lot of ways, built this instrument from the bottom up to fit exactly Joe Alessi's needs, what he desires in his playing. And what's really great about it, I think, is it creates an instrument that does so many things so well right off the bat. So first off, it does have an 8.5-inch bell. This is called their JA bell here. So it's a two-piece hand-hammered bell, unsoldered rim. They do a special annealing with it, and my understanding is they actually have a heavier stem on the bell that lightens up as we get down towards the flare here. We'll talk about what that does in a minute. So that is coupled with gold brass tuning slides. So this is their TG F tuning slides here. So not only is the main tuning slide gold brass drawn, but the F side tuning slide is also gold brass. And both of these are coupled with their brand new Alessi model rotor. The rotor, we've got the rose brass cap there, which I haven't had a chance to try different options on this version, but Shires says it makes a huge difference. In my experience, changing materials like that, I'm inclined to agree with them. I'm certain it does. One interesting little feature here with the wrap, they are doing kind of a fully open resonant brace here. With the standard Shires rotor valve, we've got one side that's open, that's got the the expended free brace here, and then the other side is actually braced to the neck pipe, the gooseneck coming off of the rotor. In this case, we have both of them freed up here. The idea there, of course, is that you're changing some of the resonance, some of the response and sound qualities. All of this is paired up with their Joseph Alessi model hand slide. So it's a wide hand slide, just a standard 547 single bore, yellow brass. I'm sorry, I misspoke there. Gold brass outer tubes with a yellow brass crook. A very, very interesting combination of material. And when we've had a chance in the past to spend time with his previous model with Edwards, what I really found with the instrument is that it was a very efficient instrument, but you had to play it a certain way. When I went through and played it, I found that if I could find the exact right approach with my air and kind of my sound, my playing concept, it played wonderfully, but I had to play it one certain way. And what I found right off the bat with both the Q series Alessi model and of course the custom one is that it is more accessible. And like I mentioned, it does so many things so well. On the Shires description for this, they describe it as having a complex sound, something that has some real broadness to the sound, extremely even throughout the different registers. And I find that to be absolutely true. With this combination of materials, you would expect right off the bat for it to have especially some real weight, some almost heaviness, some real width to the sound with all of the gold brass here in place. But with how they balanced everything out, what you get is a sound with a lot of depth. There's a real core to it. There's such a stability. It's a sound that comes from me right from the middle of the sound all the way to the outside. But as you start moving through the different dynamics, you don't get as much of a shift in the timbre. It still gets brilliance for me as I was going through some of the excerpts, as I was going through, the first movement of the Oazen sonata that he wrote for Joseph Alessi. As I was going through that, I was really trying to push the dynamics. And while I was doing that, I could get some brilliance out of it, but it still maintains so much of the core, of the mass of the sound. This is an instrument that, for me, that has such a natural classical response. So what I mean by that is when I go to play, it seems like immediately it has that weight to the sound, the ooh to it. Some trombones, some instruments, when you play, the sound is almost too fast. It's almost too immediate, and you can get a real snap to it. Now, some folks like that, and depending on their approach, sometimes if they tend to have a little bit larger, slower response, having an instrument that has a little bit more snap to the front can balance that out. With this, what I find is it just naturally has that weight, that presence to the sound, and it makes playing through all of these different excerpts really, really easy. Again, just everything feels really accessible. Everything slots so well. The upper register just, it sings. I've certainly played trombones where I feel like I have a little bit easier access to the upper register, but I'm not certain that they always have this kind of sound. They maintain that breadth and that core to the sound as we're getting up into the 8th, 9th, 10th partials. I personally love how the lower register plays on this instrument. I feel like getting down to like the second partial, low B flat, and getting down into the trigger register, I feel like it still has a lot of mass. It's almost it reminds me a little bit of a bass trombone almost, because you have this core, this mass, but you can get a little bit of that growl in the sound there, and it does it very naturally. And again, all through the instrument, I feel like I don't have to work very hard at all. In fact, I found myself at times, and this has been true with other models, artist models of his I've played in the past, where I've almost found myself having to remind myself, don't work so hard. I don't have to force the instrument to do something. It's doing a lot of this more naturally. And again, I think it's a real testament to all of the artistry that goes into not only somebody like Joseph Alessi and knowing what his needs are and being able to work with a maker like Shires, but the Shires as well, being able to really put together a unique package that fits, what his needs were, and I think are going to fit the needs of a lot of trombone players as well. It's a combination where you start looking at all of the different parts together and you say, well, will that really work? And then you play it and you say, it absolutely does work here. So very, very exciting. I think, in the Shires pantheon of models, I can see this being an incredibly popular option because, again, I think it is such a versatile horn, especially, again, for those classical settings. Somebody like Joseph Alessi, he's going to be able to take it in whatever setting he wants and absolutely destroy with it because of a few of its playing attributes. I personally, if I had to take it into a setting where I needed more pop, more front to the note, I might struggle a little bit with it. It was interesting. I found that with this instrument, the hardest articulation I wanted to use, and frankly to a point almost could use, was a nice do. I felt if I tried to get any sharper than that, I wasn't getting the response, the clarity. It actually responded better if I softened up my articulation a little bit. So what does that mean? Well, if you have a particular approach to the instrument where you have a little more forcefulness, if you feel like you need a little bit more speed with the air, if you like to use a little bit harsher articulation, this may or may not be as great a fit for you. Or if you were looking for something, say, well, I'm going to play in orchestra one day, but I want to take it and play it in my jazz ensemble the next day and try to get that real snap and pop out of it, this may or may not do that for you. If you were looking for something with that, to go into that kind of setting, but still maintain a lot of the large bore attributes, there might be other models I would recommend. But as, especially more of a classical horn with versatility that you can take into, any classical setting that you can imagine, boy, it's hard to imagine a much better package with this. I think they've developed a fantastic instrument here, and I'm really glad that I had a chance to spend some time with it. So I hope you enjoyed this review. If you have any thoughts about what you heard, if you have any questions about this model, any of the other models that you see from SE Shires or anything else, please feel free to leave them in the comments. I would love to interact with you, and I know the members of our community on our channel here would love to as well. If you haven't already had a chance, please consider giving this video a thumbs up, and please consider subscribing to our channel. I'm always trying to create new, fresh content that is hopefully interesting for you. Make sure you hit that notification button so you find out when we have new videos coming your way. And of course, you can always find us on Facebook and Instagram as well. So thank you very much for watching.